So typically, this area of perfect action is in the realm of the Five Precepts, which I'm fairly confident all of you have heard of and possibly studied, possibly in a lot of depth before, some of you. And as I say, in the Eightfold Path, speech has its own limb or kind of category in a way. So I'm not going to base this around the precepts on this particular occasion. Maybe Sanghanath or Dana Jyoti will pick that up in other weeks. But I'm going to talk about three things, three subheadings here. One is action as the expression of perfect vision and perfect emotion. So I'm going to link it to where we've been already in the Eightfold Path. Secondly, I'm going to go into this word skillful. What does skillful mean? It's a very interesting word. And thirdly, I'm going to talk about the power of collective action. And we have Sanghanath here, who's very welcome, joining us from the Karuna Trust, and he'll help me with that. So I'll be handing over to him for part of that section. So I'll be introducing that. So action is the expression of perfect vision and perfect emotion. So perfect action, it's not just action that accords with some external standard or criteria. It's action which expresses, it's expressive of perfect vision and perfect emotion. So we've seen that perfect vision is about seeing what's possible. It's a touchstone for the kinds of inspiration worthy of a lifetime's dedication. It's something that points to meaning, that points to the purpose of existence, something that seems to point to another dimension of our human potential. And perfect emotion is the state that our heart, it enables us to live out our vision, that place that the heart can be where we feel the motivation to live our vision. You could call it the enthusiasm, the faith to follow through on what our sense of meaning, our sense of importance has spoken to us of. And because that's not always an easy path, it gives us the love and compassion which helps us on our way. So it's quite often necessary to forgive ourselves and others along the way of trying to walk the path towards the direction that the perfect vision points, if you like. So Sanghanath, in his 1968 lectures, which is the sort of quite a core source of teaching on this model, this Eightfold Path, he says, why are most of us, most of the time, unable to act in accordance with what we know is true, what we know is right? Well, it's because we haven't got our instincts, our intuition, our driving emotional forces behind what we know. So the word for perfect emotion, as Sanghanath is translating it here, is sankalpa. And it can also be translated as will or resolve. So you could look at it if perfect vision is the top of the mountain, is where we're heading. Samyak sankalpa, or perfect emotion, will, resolve, is what gives us the oomph to get up there. So perhaps that's an appropriate metaphor as we're planning to do some walks on local hills. You kind of have to want to, don't you, to get up the steep bit. So now we have the inspiration, we have the motivation, the emotional energies to follow the inspiration. Now we follow it. This is where we express our vision in action. So the actions we take, the basis for them might be different from some of the other ways our behavior is led. So through our lives, our actions might have been determined by external sources of authority, maybe sometimes with good reason when we aren't very good at aligning ourselves with our values or we don't know what they are. But on the whole, it's not a great way to live your life. You want to be finding your motivation for action other than from external sources of authority as you become an adult. So there's all sorts of other ways that we act out of fear of punishment or shame-based systems, the pull to conform and fit in, doing what everyone else does. You know, those are all those more sort of immature ways of making a decision about action. But the guidelines for action in the Eightfold Path are different from all of these. And it's about how we put our vision into practice. But because we don't really know the way up this mountain, going back to my metaphor, the Buddha put in some signposts. So you could say those were the precepts. And he mapped out the path and gave us the map, but we have to walk it ourselves. So it's almost like behaving as a Buddha would. It's like a rehearsal for Buddhahood by following these signposts. So that's how it relates to perfect vision and perfect emotion. So I'm going to go on to talk about skillful, the word skillful, because this is really fundamental to ethics. And although we probably do all still know this, we do know this word. I've been going back again to Sanghanath's lecture on this topic, and yeah, something really jumped out at me that I want to share. So you'll probably be familiar with the idea that Buddhist ethics, and we're in the area of ethics, you know, what guides our actions. It's not so much the action in and of itself, like it would be in a legal system. It's about the mental state that produces the action. So we can use our mental state, our awareness of our mental states, to help inform which action is the wiser, the more compassionate action. So a classic example is if someone gives someone a gift, which can appear very generous, you might think, but a gift could be being used as a way of manipulating someone, kind of looking for a reciprocal gift, or to kind of curry favor with someone. Or it could be expression of love and gratitude, you know. So it's not the giving of the gift, it's what mental state motivates it. And I was thinking of an example, a different kind of example, which might be that imagine a situation, a scenario where someone shares information about someone else against their wishes. So you might think, oh, that doesn't sound good. That sounds like a breach of trust. It might be a betrayal of confidence, and it might be. But it could also be done out of metta to keep them safe from harm, or others safe from harm. So it could be they may be a danger to themselves or others, and actually the most compassionate thing to do would be to try to find help, even if they really didn't want you to. You might override their wishes for the greater good. So again, the motivation to do something like that is the important thing, not actually what's being done. Sometimes people use the term intention, and that's a legitimate word from the teachings, to use to the words intention. In other words, the intention behind something is what makes it skillful or unskillful. But this is often misunderstood. So you get this annoying thing, and I feel like I moan about this quite often, When you point out maybe to someone that they've said something insensitive and they say, it wasn't my intention to upset you, as if that puts an end to it, as if that's you know, that's it then. They've just kind of got themselves off the hook by saying that. As if someone might wake up in the morning and decide, I think I'll say something insensitive today. And if you don't do that, then everything's, you know, fine. But we don't have full knowledge of what's driving us. And at least some of the time, we can be going around in a bit of a fog of habits or self-delusion. So it's not a very reliable, your own awareness of your own intention is not a very reliable benchmark in a way. And Sanghanath brings out the meaning of the term skillful in this way from the 1968 lecture. I just want to read it to you and then reread the last line because it really jumped out at me. This is what I wanted to share. So he says, I'm quoting, according to Buddhist tradition, there are two kinds of action, skillful and unskillful. This is significant because the term is skillful and unskillful. Unlike the term good and bad, it suggests that morality or ethics is very much a matter of intelligence. You cannot be skillful unless you can understand things, unless you can see possibilities and explore them. Hence, morality or ethics, according to Buddhism, is as much a matter of intelligence and insight as one of good intentions and good feelings. So I'll just repeat that last line. It's as much a matter of intelligence and insight as one of good intentions and good feelings. So intention is a factor, but it's also about learning and sensitivity. And I wanted to tell a story about this or give an example of this. I was trying to think of an example. And it's a very, in a way, it's a kind of a bit of an innocent little example, but I think it illustrates the point. And it's my relationship with birthdays. So I've never been that interested in birthdays. Probably as a kid, I was quite interested in my own. But it wasn't a big deal in my family, really. And so through my adult life, I don't think I've really paid that much attention to other people's birthdays. And I sometimes just kind of rather casually say, oh, I'm not very good with birthdays. I can never really quite remember or do the right thing. I'm not very good at choosing presents. But then over the years, I realized that other people really, really care about birthdays. You know, like there is a range. And I'm at one end of the spectrum, and there are other people at the other end of the spectrum for whom not noticing their birthday and making a fuss of them is a really big deal. And it's not really good enough for me to say, oh, I'm not really into birthdays. You know, it's like I was kind of neglecting. It probably was feeling like I was kind of neglecting them or sort of falling short in my friendship by not noticing more. And so as I've learned this and noticed this, I've kind of tried to pull my socks up a bit around this and marked it in my diary and, you know, put more effort into it because I know it matters to other people. So I hope you'll see that it's like I could say, oh, it wasn't my intention to neglect you and make you feel that I'm, you know, not I don't care about making a fuss of you. I could have said that and it was kind of true, but it didn't, I wasn't learning that other people looked at it differently. And that was as important a part of my practice of friendship as anything. So I kind of had to learn to be sensitive to it in the way that I hadn't previously been. So it's a funny little example that, you know, it's kind of probably not, it hasn't sort of ruined any of my friendships or anything. And people haven't even had that much of a moan about it. But I think there have been those little moments of disappointment where people had kind of wanted a little bit more from me than they got. So yeah, so skillful and unskillful. It's about to go back to that phrase. It's as much a matter. Sorry, it is as much a matter of intelligence and insight as one of good intentions and good feelings. So the third part I want to come to is the power of collective action. So we do express our vision as individuals in action, and we express it as a Sangha as well. We express it as a collective. And to me, one of the most exciting things about being part of a Sangha, and probably about being involved in Triratna in particular, is that it gives us a context to work together to express our vision and put our vision into action. And we do have people with all sorts of different skills and shared resources, people living in different countries. You know, it's a worldwide movement in 29 different countries, I think now. And that means that there are so many ways we can express loving kindness and compassion in the world. And the impact of doing that together is so much greater than what we can do as individuals. So being part of a Sangha, if I choose to be for the rest of my life, gives me the opportunity to take part in that collective action, which I do find very exciting, actually. So the first contact I ever had with Triratna, the bit that I first kind of bumped into, was the Karuna Trust, which is, well, this is an example of a way in which Triratna can respond to suffering on a global scale. So I'd worked for a few years in a kind of corner of the international aid world. And so Karuna Trust funds social projects in India. And so that was actually a very good connection for me to first meet Triratna in that way. And from there, I got connected with retreat centres and groups and so on. But Karuna Trust was the first contact with Triratna. They had an office in those days. It was based in Oxford, and they had a office about 20 doors up the road from where I worked in another project. So to help kind of go into this more, Sanghanath has kindly joined us, and Sanghanath works for the Karuna Trust. If we could maybe spotlight Sanghanath as well, Matty, if that's possible. Yeah, great. Okay. So Sanghanath, over to you. Tell us a bit more about Karuna's work.
Great. Thank you, Maitrisara, and thank you so much for inviting me tonight to tell a little bit about Karuna and Karuna appeals, really. My connection goes long way away, actually, with Karuna. When I was a little boy in southwest of India, I grew up in a small village. And one of Karuna's projects reached my village. They used to run weekly classes for children, teaching songs, plays, and just fire them imagination, because we don't have enough space in the house, or our parents don't know how to actually play with children or teach children. So these classes really helped me to just give them so much joy, actually, playing. There's a space for play, and somebody can actually teach, how to play and fire our imagination as well. That's how I come across Triratna, and that's how I come across Karuna Trust in first place. And then I became instructor, and I was working with projects. It's really good to hear Maitrisara used to work for Karuna. So it means actually Maitrisara's contribution probably has affected me when I was a child in my village. Whatever you have done in UK probably has transferred to India that time, and it still does. In 2005, I came to UK working with Karuna Trust. No, not Karuna Trust, Windows Evolution. And when I working was Windows Evolution, I was always curious about Karuna's work in UK, how they raise money in the UK. So I took some unpaid leave from Windows Evolution, and I done first Karuna Appeal in 2008. And since then, I've been working with Karuna. I can't say so much actually about Karuna Appeals, how they benefited me personally. But once I'd done, I could not stop really working for Karuna. In a sense, I completed that kind of circle. I was one of beneficiaries of Karuna's work in India. Then I used to work with some projects. And now I just wanted to see how Karuna raises money. And I am part of that raising money at the moment as well. So I feel glad kind of completing the circle for myself as well. I would say two things about Karuna Appeals. I mean, Karuna's work is very much to do with eradicating caste discrimination, poverty, education, women's empowering projects, and light livelihood and so on. You probably heard about Karuna's work, and still is very inspiring for me and very close to my heart, really, Karuna's work. But the Karuna Appeals I wanted to just emphasize tonight are a very big part of Karuna's work. In a way, this is our lifeblood, if you like, for Karuna. Our 80% of income comes from door-to-door fundraising, 6 weeks door-to-door fundraisings. And there's so many things I can tell you about, really, because I've done so many appeals and fundraising, but maybe two things comes to my mind for tonight. One is our supporters. When you meet supporters on the doors, when you knock doors and meet people, they often respond to this suffering. They really, even there's a complexes, the caste system is very complicated to understand, but people do respond the hell of caste and what goes with caste, the poverty, oppression and so on. So I really impressed or always inspired how many people on the doors actually understand the suffering of India, Nepal, and the caste issues. And they really support Karuna. So that's always inspiring for me, to just meeting people on the doors and really getting their support for Karuna's work. And the second thing is really spiritual community. I always stuck by how much you can achieve in 6 weeks, 5-6 people living together, practicing together, and going out and raising money for Karuna. So there's two things. One, they really benefited from the spiritual practice. And the second thing is, in 6 weeks, we raised so much money, something like £100,000 over the 5 years' time value. We raised about £100,000 in 5 years' time, if you calculate it. And that money can affect so many people in India and Nepal. And now it is Bangladesh as well. We're actually supporting Bangladesh. So it really struck me, little act of 6 weeks, living together, practicing together, as a power of community, power of collectiveness can go so much beyond our imagination. And what I like about this work, actually, there are supporters, like 8,000 existing supporters, if you like. Then there is a Karuna team. Then there is a Karuna field. And then there's a project partners in India. We're all working together collectively, and we touching or impacting so many lives in India and Nepal. That's kind of power of really collective efforts, if you like. So definitely the Karuna Appeals for me is a power of collective efforts. So tonight I just wanted to invite you really. Last year we could not do any door-to-door fundraising, but this year we really like to start doing again if we can, if governments allow us. And there are already some charities started fundraising. This year we can't have a physical community where we can rent house, live together and practice together, because the COVID-19 situation can't allow to do that. But what we decided, we can still run these Karuna Appeals, people still can live in their own home, own cities. We have a training program online like this, and we can also support one-to-one on the doors as well. We can go with fundraiser, one-to-one supporting them. And that, in that sense, we can still try to establish community online, and then we can fundraise for Karuna for 6 weeks. So what I want to ask you really, if you are interested, even little interested, you thought about doing Karuna Appeal or wanted to find out about Karuna Appeal, just get in contact with me and I can tell you a little bit more about Karuna Appeals. Especially what I would say, if we can get 2, 3, 4 people doing Karuna Appeals in your city, in Birmingham together, that would be even better. Because you still can be in same city, support each other, sort of create community for each other, and you can still do this work. So anyway, this is a new experiment for us, and I really hope we work this year, this time, and we continue to do, touching and impacting many millions of people in India and Nepal. So that's I really wanted to say. Maybe I will put my details here if you want to just to get in contact with me, send me email or text or things like that.
Or people can contact us and we can forward it on.
Yes.
So yeah, no, that's a really interesting model. We have to be really creative in these times, don't we? When you can't do the usual appeals where people live together and so on. But this is a kind of adaptation of your model, and it's been, as you say, just a highly successful model over the years. And I know a lot of people have done those appeals and have just found them very, very inspiring. And they're challenging, aren't they? They're challenging and they're very inspiring. It's really kind of profound spiritual work, really, to do that.